Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live reaction show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. Now, unfortunately, we got a taste of our own medicine today, didn't we? As we lost to a last-minute winner against Crystal Palace, which of course ended 2-1. So we'll talk about the match in more detail. We'll talk about the talking points. Plus, we'll do a player ratings, and we also have a link pinned in the chat for anyone that wants to call in. So if you want to come on and have your say, a link has been pinned. So feel free to hit it and I will get you on later in the show. So yeah, let's go through the match highlights and tell what occurred today. Crystal Palace were the team that brought the deadlock through Ismaila Mane, who I like to call also known as Ismaila Sarr, because he turns into prime Mane whenever he faces Liverpool. The goal came from a set piece as Sarr was given the ball basically on a platter to score in a point blank range. But for me, poor defending from Gravenberg, who headed the ball back into the danger zone rather than clearing his lines, similar to what Endo did against Southampton midweek against, so in the Carabao Cup. But having said that, you know, I'm not using this as an excuse. You looking at the replays, that corner should not have been given, as it was quite clear that Mitchell got the last touch in his duel against Bradley. But you can't defend how we defended for that set piece. But in regards to Crystal Palace, they didn't stop there as they were peppering shots. Um, on goal throughout the first half. Uh, they hit us on the counter. The new signing, Yeremy Pino, has a low shot inside the box, and Allison produces a fantastic one handed save to deny the Spanish winger. Canate producing a bozo moment as he lost the ball in the build up. Liverpool did create a chance through Gravenberg, who hit a shot from the edge of the box. Fantastic save from Henderson, who parries the ball onto the post. Uh, Munoz has a shot for Crystal Palace from close range. Alisson producing another worldy save there, and Munoz tried to follow up with a second shot, but unfortunately his shot hit the roof of the net. Konate then again produces another diabolical moment that allows Mateta to go through on goal, but Alisson stood strong and denied the French striker. But Konate had a moment where maybe he could redeem himself in the attacking half, but unfortunately he misses the chance with a free header that goes wide. Big opportunity for the defender to score. Wharton, who for me was fantastic for Palace today, goes on an amazing run on that left hand side, goes past two, three players, passes the ball to Sarr, but unfortunately he hits the side netting. Palace then produced another shot that for me was so unlucky that it didn't hit the back of the net. This is when Mateta curled it in from the edge of the box, hits the inside of the post. Liverpool, quite frankly, were very lucky and got away with it there. Literally a minute later, Mateta then has another chance towards goal with a left-footed volley, but for him, he just hits it over the bar. Huge chance to capitalize, or should I say, extend the lead in that moment. And then just before halftime, Salah was through on goal. The only time he was during the game, to be honest. He tries to lift it over the keeper, but for Henderson, he manages to block it with his head and deny the Egyptian king. And it was quite obvious. It was one-way traffic in the first half. Liverpool didn't really pose any threat whatsoever. So things needed to be changed. And that is exactly what happened as Arsenal brought on Gakpo to change the shape of the team. And he did pretty much have an instant impact as he produces a shot from outside of the box. But unfortunately for him, he hits it wide. And then it was back to normal procedure in terms of what happened in the first half because Palace were at it again. This time it was Mateta through on goal, but the Brazilian Alisson Becker denies the French striker with another crucial block yet again. Liverpool then create a big opportunity through Dominic Szoboszlai, who dinks the ball over the Crystal Palace defense to try and find Florian Wirtz. Florian Wirtz tries to cushion his touch towards goal, but for me, he gets it all wrong, as he should have gone with a bit more power, a bit more of a side-footed finish. In the end, Henderson makes a very comfortable save. Isak, who was quite quiet during the game, has a couple of moments in the second half to help Liverpool get the equaliser. There was one moment where he goes on a mazy run inside the box, hits a side-footed shot towards goal, but unfortunately, due to losing balance, he completely miscued it and he missed the target. Then moments later, he had a header that goes over the bar. So Bosley was able to hit a shot despite being shifted over to right back on the edge of the box. And for me, it was one of those moments where Salah tries to get onto the ball and guide it back to the goal, but he ends up hitting it over the bar. For me, Salah should have left that shot in the first place, as it looked like suppose that shot was heading towards the corner of the goal. So, you know, did not don't know if it had enough power to hit the back of the net, but I'd rather that have gone towards goal rather than Salah's effort in the end. And Mateta produces an inch perfect left footed cross from that left flank, finds Nketiah with a header. Unfortunately for Nketiah, hits it wide, should have buried it, and that was a huge opportunity for Palace to make it 2-0. Chiesa, who's come off the bench, has an instant impact. He has a close shot towards goal with his left foot, just hits the outside of the post, so close from the Italian winger. But Chiesa finally makes an impact as he scores the goal from the inside of the box and equalizes for Liverpool. At that time, it felt like it was game on. Can Liverpool go on and grab the winner once again? Because that has been the reality for us so far this season. But unfortunately, the tables have been turned as it was Crystal Palace who grabbed the last minute winner. Poor clearance from Kirkes, who gave Palace a throw in the final third. Chris Richards hits a long throw towards goal, and Nketiah is on his own on that near post, hits the left foot strike, and hits the back of the net and gives Palace all 3 points. So look, overall, I'm not going to be petty and I'm not going to put the blame just on Liverpool. You have to give credit to Oliver Glasner and you have to give credit to the boys at Crystal Palace. They were fantastic today. The first half, it was all Palace. They were relentless. And quite frankly, we were very lucky to even have a 1-0 scoreline at halftime because they should have hit us 5, 6 times because they had produced so many clear-cut chances. If it wasn't for Allison, I think literally it would have been close to a embarrassing scoreline in the end. But for me, they deserved all 3 points, and I know they got it through a last-minute winner. But quite frankly, if Liverpool got a point today, I would have said that they were very, very lucky because we were absolutely awful today. A shadow of ourselves, no real fight, no real energy, played with no sort of tenacity or purpose. It was quite an awful watch for us. So yeah, back to the drawing board. Liverpool have to improve. We can't just expect us to have late minute winners all the time. We've got to start playing better football now. It is a bit of a concern. I wouldn't crash out and say, we're done or, start saying all sorts of stuff. I do feel like there are areas that we need to improve and it needs to happen very, very soon. So yeah, overall, the best team won, in my opinion. Crystal Palace deserve all 3 points. They remain unbeaten in the league. We don't, unfortunately. But hey, that's how it goes sometimes. So what we'll do now is we'll move on and do the player ratings. Just gonna go through some of the comments here. Uh Ozzy Kabak, big up Ozzy Kabak as always. He says, I'm so angry at the way we conceded cheap goals today, Ozzy. Yes, the goals that we conceded goes down to our mistakes, and that's what's biggest concern for me is that the goals that we've conceded, it hasn't really been through beautiful football or exquisite team play. It's been our own mistakes, our own wrongdoings that have led to goals, um, you know, that ends up being winners or ends up being consolations for certain teams in terms of the fixtures we played so far this season. So these are something we have to try and eradicate from our game. We have to improve. We have to work on this in training because too many individual errors are costing Liverpool right now. Konate gave the ball away so many times. That's what I'm saying. It really could have been, you know, receiving a real punishment today if Palace were more clinical up top. So yeah, count ourselves lucky that the score was even 2-1. But with us being Liverpool and the way we've been playing and with the quality we have, when we got that equaliser, we thought maybe we'll just nick the win, or maybe we'll even just stick um, to a more of a defensive setup and work for a point in the end. Um, it looked like that was going to be the case, but due to a couple errors, definitely unfortunately didn't help. So yeah, we'll talk about that in the player ratings more specifically when it comes to individual errors there. Excuse me. Deleuze, big up yourself. He said didn't deserve anything from that game. Diabolical defending. Kirkes and Konate were piss poor. Has Van Dijk lost a step as well? I wouldn't say he has lost a step today. Unfortunately, I think he's got defenders around him that have been incapable so far this season. So, even when he has performed well or he's performed to a decent standard, it doesn't shine as much because the people around him have been so bad. So for me, um, no, I don't think he's lost a step. But at the same time, I don't think he was amazing today either. But yeah, it was a crazy, crazy game. Um, and something that needs to be addressed because defensively we're just all over the place. But in terms of up top, even from an attacking point of view, we just haven't gelled right now, and we really miss Ekatike today. I'm not saying that's not because I'm not saying that's the reason why we lost. We could have really have used his directness in terms of how he plays, and Isak, unfortunately, showed moments but wasn't really given the service today. So. Um, Not one of his best outings for sure, but that's just how it goes. Unfortunately, sometimes. Do Steve said many questions need asking of the defense. Aston should say that stoppage time go. Ah, it's point blank range. So I don't know. I'm not quite with that, to be honest with you. Um, the ball was gifted to him, just like the Ismail Assar. Ismail Assar was a little bit close, a bit more central. But in terms of this is between the goal line and the player, it wasn't that far off. So, in that moment you have to favor attacker. It's a point blank shot. And if he was to save it, we'd be talking all sorts about it. But in that moment, it's advantage striker, in my opinion. So I wouldn't say he should have saved it. It wasn't like it was a poor miss from the striker. The striker was given a ball, left footed strike, literally 2, 3 yards out. Can't really do much in those moments, unfortunately. Musa, big up Musa says, do you think Liverpool defense is a slight concern this season? It is for a number of reasons. I think currently we're not playing as a unit. We haven't quite gelled together. We've got new players in terms of Kirkes, Frimpong. They haven't really hit the ground running as such. Kirkes has produced good moments here and there, but he's also had a few stinkers as well. So he's not quite adapted to life at Liverpool right now. Frimpong has been in and out of the team. Bradley was okay today, but wasn't great either. And Knate, oh my God, he's looked to shadow himself, and it's a huge concern, especially with that we've only got 3 recognized centre backs in our squad. Unfortunately, he only picked up an ACL injury midweek, and he's ruled out for the rest of the season. So it is a concern in terms of how we're performing, but also if you're looking at the squad depth, it's not looking good. So I really hope Liverpool can address that. And just a little side note as well, we're pretty much, targeting the captain from the other side in Mark Gay. Even today, Mark Gay wasn't amazing. He was all right. He was. I don't think he's the savior to our defensive woes right now, in my opinion. But with his quality and experience, he would be a welcome addition to our squad. So hopefully that's something we can try and reignite in the January window. But if you're reading rumors and all sorts of speculation online, at the minute it sounds like we might not be doing that. We might want to hold off and sign him on a free for next summer. So yeah, let's see what happens. But yes, it is a big concern so far this season. Delusi says Kirkes should have just held on to the ball instead of clearing it for the last throw in that led to the winner. I don't think he should have held on to the ball. I think he should have cleared it with his right foot and cleared it where he's hit it all the way to the right side of the pitch, closer to their defensive half. He's pretty much hit in the worst position. Obviously, he was trying to do it because he's left footed, but if you've gone onto your left foot, hit it forward. Why have you hit it towards the throw in? They would have known because they would have done training drills during the week. That's one of their key weapons. They love a long throw in. So that throwing was just as good as a corner kick, and unfortunately we cost the price there. So for me, poor defending from Kerkez. But even before that, Curtis Jones, lost the ball in a very bizarre fashion, and it was his header that gave the ball to Nketiah as well. So yeah, a lot of individual errors in that whole build up there. So yeah, not a good sight for us Liverpool fans at all. More so, should Liverpool focus on bringing in more centre backs in the next transfer window? In an ideal world, yes, I'd like us to sign two centre backs, but maybe I sound a bit greedy there. But a one centre back has to be a priority. It's vital. It's not even an option if I'm being brutally honest with you. With three centre backs in our squad, and we've got two that are known to have injury records, especially Joe Gomez. If one of them were to pick up an injury, that's two centre backs in our squad, and then you have to go through the squad to present makeshift solutions, i.e., Endo could be a makeshift right back. Gravenberch, who played in the latter stage of today, looked good, but I don't want my elite number six or elite defensive midfielder playing in that role. But then there's other fans telling me Bajtic could be an option. I don't quite see it. I haven't seen it in Liverpool colours. I know he had a great loan spell for Las Palmas, but I'm not seeing it in the English game. So for me, I will still have a question marks in regards to that being a viable option. And plus, he's training, but he's never featured in a squad. So I don't know in terms of where he is in terms of match fitness. So for me, a centre back, maybe even two, is a must for this window coming up. Whether Liverpool do that remains to be seen because we don't tend to splash the cash in January. We like to try and hold off for summer recruits unless one of our targets on our shortlist is being hunted by other clubs in January. And that's when we pounce. If you look at our recent history, the likes of Diaz and Gakpo, they were bought in January because other teams were trying to sign them under our noses, I guess. So let's see what happens. But a defender is a minimum for me in the January window. If we don't do any business in regards to signing centre backs, I would have concerns going into the second half of the season because you can't rely on two or three players to help win silverware. And when I say help win silverware, I'm hoping that we're in all competitions at that time. And if we're going to fight for all cylinders, you're hoping to have a fully fit squad. Of course, Leone is out, so that's three centre backs. So we need to get at least one. And I'm not buying that we've got good options in our squad. We don't. We've got Endo, who's decent at best at centre back. Bajtic probably play centre back, in Spain or in his youth days at Liverpool. But haven't seen it in the first team kind of mix. And unfortunately, we've still got a Reece Williams. And I say unfortunately, I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that, but he's not Liverpool caliber. So it's a concern. And Liverpool need to address this in the upcoming window. So let's move on and do the player ratings. Feel free to get involved and let me know your thoughts. Should be an easy one today. I'll try and be as measured in terms of my assessment, but let's see how it goes. So in terms of Allison, if it wasn't for Allison, God knows what the scoreline would be. It could have been double digits. That's how many chances or clear-cut chances that Crystal Palace created today. So for me, um, he's the only one that I feel like produced a good performance today and played to his level. And in this moment, I'm going to look at his individual performance rather than put it into context with what happened in the match, i.e., the scoreline, because I don't think he was at fault for either of the goals. Ismail Assar one, he was literally a yard away from him. This attacker's going to score. And Nketiah goal, I think that's point blank range again. So for me, he's not at fault for that one. So for Allison, I'm going to give him a 9. I know that sounds like a very high score for someone to pretty much be on the losing side, but he produced phenomenal saves today. Mateta 101 buries them, every day of the week, but Allison showed his quality, and I think Allison is one of the best when it comes to those kind of one-on-one situations. because he makes himself look really big and manages to produce the blocks when needed. So I'm going to give him a 9 because I thought he was a solid performance from him from a goalkeeping point of view anyway. But in terms of the team, um, yeah, I've taken context out of it because I don't think I can't give him a 5 or a 6 just because we've lost. I think he was definitely a better than that and deserves to be given a better rating for his individual performance today. Now moving on, Conor Bradley looks okay. Wasn't the best in terms of the second half. Sorry, in terms of the first half, he was taken off in the second half, but I don't think he was that bad that Stott was like, we need to get rid of him. We just had to switch it up. We've seen Sobozlai play at right back and has looked really prominent in that role. So therefore, we reverted back to the option. And that's why Bradley was taken off. So I thought Bradley wasn't, too bad today. Unlucky in terms of the corner kick because it wasn't a corner. Mitchell did get the last touch in there, one-on-one duel there. So unlucky on that side. So for me, I'm going to give Conor Bradley a 4 out of 10. I don't think uh, he was that bad, but then again, we had to really change our shape going forward. Oh, Ibn Konate, let me have a sip of water because I'm going to try and be as polite as possible with regards to his assessment today. That's one of the worst performances I've seen from Ibu, and he's had some shockers so far this season. I can't think of one positive to say about Konate today. He made a lot of individual errors, and I have said in the past in terms of his, ball distribution that he's not elite. He's far from it. But because he's lacking confidence as well, today I saw and I thought, wow, he is absolutely poor when it comes to passing. And there were times where, he produced a couple of passes that bobbled about 10 times before it arrived to the player. But he just looked so nervous, just so out of tune that when he got the ball, I felt on edge. And he didn't really build confidence whenever he was in or around the ball. And unfortunately, I'm just speaking as a spectator, but I think that does reflect onto the team as well. They probably sense that, he's not in good form. We've got to be careful because he cost us a lot of moments where it led to Mateta getting past him or creating other openings for other players. And if it wasn't for Allison's brilliance in terms of making crucial blocks, they could have scored a number of goals, and it would have been due to Konate's poor performance today. So today he was just prone to every error possible. So for me, I'm not going to be rude. I'm going to give him a 1. And that's just me giving a 1 because, like you do when you have an exam, you write your name. He stepped into the pitch. So that's why he gets a 1. But in terms of performance, he was absolutely awful. So for me, I'm not having that. Just going to go through some of the comments. Every single player gets no higher than a 2 today. I'm not going to do that. I feel like you have to rate based on the performance in terms of what they produced. I'm not going to put the scoreline in terms of my rating or my assessment because that's just too easy. We've lost. Oh yeah, give everyone a 1 or give everyone a 2. That's not how it works with me. I go based on how everyone's performed individually, and that's why that's how I do things. So yeah, if you don't agree, that's fair, but that is the way I do it. Just ruined my day. Yeah, it's ruined everyone's day. To be fair, 9. Well, look, he made about 10 world class saves. What else do you want me to do? You want me to give him 5 for doing all of those saves? I don't think that's acceptable. If it wasn't for him, Palace would have won 10-0 today. And I'm not even exaggerating because a lot of those shots, most keepers would not have saved those. So that's why I'm going based on individual performance rather than what the scoreline presents. It's too easy to just give everyone ones today. That's not how it works. So put it into context in terms of look how the player performed and then go based on your own rating there. Forget the scoreline now. That's why you don't see the scoreline on my screen. It says player ratings because I'm going based on the player. So that's just how I feel in terms of how I do my assessment. If you disagree, fair enough, but that's how I do things here. Uh, Van Dijk, okay performance. I don't think he was solid today, if I'm being brutally honest. Um, but then again, the people around him did not help. So I thought he had an average kind of performance. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I don't think he was great, but I don't think he was awful in comparison to the people around him. Perkez, bit of a strange one because I probably had a bit of a higher rating for him before, the mistake he cost in the final moments of the game, and it was a mistake because when that cross came in, for me, the initial reaction would have been clear that with your right foot and hit it onto the other side of the pitch, close to the halfway line, or even further if you're able to hit that kind of distance. He didn't do that. He went around his body and was favoring a left foot clearance, which okay, it's fine. He was quite, I felt nervous when he did that because he almost got tackled or he almost got blocked in that moment. So if you're gonna do that, clear it up top, hit it as far as you can. Don't hit it for a throw in. That's the worst thing he could have done. I'm a doubtful corner, but the thing is, their throw-ins are like corner kicks because it's something they've worked on. Chris Richards is renowned to do great long throw-ins as well, and that's something they would have discussed with each other during training, or there would have been something they would have worked to kind of make sure we avoided any goals conceded from those type of moments. So for me, that's a bit of a brainless moment there, if I'm being brutally honest. But even before that, Curtis Jones gave the ball away, and in terms of the actual goal, it was his headed clearance that was pretty much plated to Nketiah. So today, that's twice. Brownback did the same. Jones did the same, where they've tried to produce a headed clearance, but in the end, it's gone behind them and it's gone to the opponent. Endo did that in the Southampton. So our last three goals we've conceded in that kind of way, where it's been poor clearances, poor individual mistakes there. So that is a concern going forward. So for me, in terms of his rating, I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10. I might be polite there, but I thought during the game he was actually decent. He did show a good account of himself, made some good runs, but I've had to lower it down. I had him probably at 5, so I've had to lower it down to 3. Um, yeah, poor mistake there in the end. Gravenberch for me had a solid game. Unfortunately, it was his mistake that led to the opening goal. But other than that, I thought he was quite solid. In the second half, he was asked to play centre back, and I thought he looked quite assured in that position. So much so, I could see the difference in terms of his passing to Konate's is day and night, if I'm being brutally honest. So for me, a decent performance from him today, not a stellar performance like it was last week. So I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Now, in terms of McAllister, he was MIA today. He really was. It's something I voiced during my watch along. I even heard the commentator say at times during the game as well. He just wasn't involved. And it's very easy for teams to overrun us in the middle of the park because of McAllister's lack of tenacity or physical presence. He just can't chase players when they get past him. So it's a concern. And look, I'm not trying to say, he's not good enough to be in the team. But a question, a conversation needs to be had right now in terms of his position at the starting lineup because it's not working. I personally think he's not quite fully fit. I'm not just making an excuse for him. He just looks like he's out of shape, seems a bit fatigued. So if that is the case, and that's what I'm seeing right now, give him a bit of a breather. Let him, be on an option off the bench rather than starting games because he's not looking like himself right now, and it's affecting the team. So for me, this is something that Arsenal needs to really consider going forward. I know we've got international break coming up next few weeks, but it's not like he gets a breather. He goes and plays for Argentina, so I think we need to wrap him up in cotton wool, try and rest him a little bit for the next game or two, and then start from there and see how he goes. Right now, he's just not in tune with the team. Um, and it's defensively been exposed a number of times. So, in terms of his performance today, um, do you know what? I think Kirk is a bit too high. Let me rephrase. I think it's a 2 because I'm going to give McAllister a 3. I think McAllister was a little bit better, but that's by a margin, if I'm being honest. So yeah, so that's my rating there for McAllister. So Bosley, I thought was one of our better midfielders today. I thought he was um, a bit more solid, showed a bit more energy, had to revert to the right back position for the second half and did well. Had a shot on the edge of the box that for me was looking like it was going towards goal. If Salah had, didn't make a touch to it whatsoever, then it could have possibly led to a goal. But I thought he was decent today. So in terms of his performance, I'll give him a 7 out of 10. Salah. Um, Salah was quiet today. Very, very quiet. Barely involved, if I'm being honest with you. Had a shot in the first half that he tried to dink over the keeper. Didn't work. I had some sort of involvement in Chiesa's goal, but nothing clear cut to say that's an assist or anything of that nature. Um, he wasn't on the ball enough like he was against Everton. Everton, he was much better. But in this game, barely involved and seemed laboured at times because he just wasn't really helping out in terms of our build-up play or anything to that nature. So similar to McAllister, I'm going to give him 3 out of 10. I don't think he was very good. Was pretty much MIA for most of the time. Um, but yeah, wasn't at his best in my opinion. Verts for me showed patches of decent play, but that's even me saying that loud, it's a bit of a stretch. Had that glorious chance in the second half where suppose I dinked the ball over the defense. For me, he should have buried it. You can't go for those kind of cushion attempts there. In that moment, you've got a defender on your side. You have to bury it. You have to go over the side for it to finish into that corner, not with a dink kind of thing, because those kind of finishes you do if you're going for the other corner where the keeper's here and you're trying to do a cheeky flick and it goes on the other side. He was doing it towards where the goalkeeper was, and because of that, you've got to hit it with power. Um, either corner would have been a goal. So for me, poor effort there. Could have really helped us in terms of building momentum because it was quite early on in the second half, and it would have given us a bigger window to try and capitalize and get that winner. Um, so for me, I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 10. I think he was slightly better than Salah, but I don't feel like he was consistently involved enough. So I'll probably give him kind of on the same level part there. So 3 out of 10 there for Verts. Isak had a frustrating afternoon to be fair. To defend him to an extent, I don't think he was given a lot of service. That's why he wasn't involved as much. But whenever he was, did okay. Didn't really cause any havoc or anything of that nature. In the second half, he had a couple opportunities where he went on a bit of a maze run inside the box, lost his balance, so ended up hitting the shot wide. Then he had a header moments later, and other than that, that's all it was, unfortunately. So for me, Isak was probably slightly better than Verts and Salah. So I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. So that's my rating there. As you can tell, everyone's got below it's around 2, 3 is the average score. Allison for me really stood out today. He probably gets man of the match. I don't think actually no. Does he get man of the match? We'll talk about later on. Um, and then Van Dijk I thought was solid. Granback was decent as well. So both like other than that, everyone else was really, really poor. So for me, um, yeah, that's my player rating there. Feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. Just gonna go through some of the comments here. Musa says, I feel like if Leone wasn't injured, he would have fitted well in the squad, especially because he was actually decent against Southampton as well. I'll tell you what, Musa, if he was available today, I would have started him, if I'm being honest with you. I was that impressed with him against Southampton that I thought, if he's at this level, he can definitely have a chance to stake a claim in the team. But unfortunately, picked up that injury and, everything went out the window. But honestly, if he was fit, for me, he would have started today ahead of Konate because Konate has been poor all season. So, yeah, it's just so unlucky, so unfortunate for the young player because 18 years old, he's just moved into the country, he's joined a new club, you know, he's on a high. And unfortunately, he's produced such a great performance and in the end got injured. So, yeah, bit of a shame. I just really hope he comes back stronger because he's out for about 10 months. So my thinking is that I hope he's fit for pre-season and it doesn't overlap and goes into the new season next season, because that would hamper his progression in the team. If he is fit enough just before pre-season, then that would be a great way for him to regain fitness and try and stake a claim next season. But yeah, very, very unlucky and very unfortunate. Um, but like I said, if he was available for me, he would have started today. Julius Steve said we also need to stop babying Verts. I don't think we're babying Verts. I think we can see glimpses of his talent right now, and we're just hoping it clicks at some shape or form. But if if you look at the current crop of players that we have in attack, no one's performed to their level apart from Ekitike. Isak is still trying to find his match fitness right now. Salah hasn't delivered. Like he's delivered in terms of scoring last minute winners and all that sort of stuff, but he's not playing like his normal self. Gakpo for me has been quite poor, very predictable. So I'm not, appreciating his game right now. Rio, of course, a breath of fresh air, but still young, very inexperienced, so not a viable option to start week in, week out, in my opinion. The positive light is Chiesa. And I said it in my match preview, I wanted Chiesa to start in this fixture, and I was quite surprised that he wasn't. But for me, the next game, it's a big talking point. Does he go with him or not in terms of Galatasaray? Because Chiesa is in the squad now, so let's see what happens. But I don't think we're babying Verts. We're seeing glimpses of his talent. It's just that he hasn't quite clicked yet. So hopefully for us, it happens sooner rather than later. Dulucci says Slot needs to start Chiesa. He does. I completely agree with you, Steve. But the comments that he said today, maybe because I haven't watched the press conference, I read it, in a transcript. It didn't bode like a positive kind of tone from Arne Slot. If when I was reading it, it felt like it sounded like he was like, "Oh yeah, he's played well, so I'm gonna have to kind of give him minutes." Like that's what it came across to me. Like he doesn't want to get him involved, and let's be honest, he if that is his opinion or that's his stance, then so be it. But you can't deny what Kier is doing. He's been impactful in every shape or form this season. Whether he's come off the bench or he started, he's done really well for us. So when someone plays to that kind of level, you have to reward them with a starting position. And I think it is now time to start Chiesa. For me, Chiesa starts on that left hand side. That is his role in the team. Of course, he can play on the right wing because he was brought in to pretty much be the backup on paper for Mohamed Salah. But I've been unimpressed with Gakpo on that left hand side. Florian Wirtz for me needs to play more centrally. That's his natural position. So let's not, change it so much right now. So I'll go for Chiesa on that left hand side in the next game. But let's see what happens. We'll see, how the team is in terms of their status, and then we'll present our predictions and lineups for the next game, which is actually against Galatasaray on Tuesday night. Got a comment here from Cash Talks Football. Hello, mate. Big up yourself, Cash Talks Football. I hope you're well. Uh, his second comment is Wirtz is new. It took uh RG 1 year to fit in. Stop the media talk. It takes over a year for a mid to play well in a team. I agree. Um, I don't know if it's your first time here, Cash, but I've been defending Verts quite a bit, and I've been getting a lot of negative response because I seem to sound like I'm um the head of Verts army, like the the Nunes army, like it was all those years ago. It takes time for midfielders, especially a player like Verts, who I describe as an artist on the pitch, because with those type of players, they've already got a picture in terms of how they want the game to be played, and they've got um, an idea in terms of where to move and where to pass the ball before they've even received the ball. So that's a player that goes off from instinct, and right now he's not having the time and space to do that. He's not played in a league like the Premier League where it's intense. You don't get the time to think. It is pass and move. You've got to be sharp, and he hasn't quite got the grasp of that, in my opinion. And I'm not saying he won't. He will at some point, but it's going to take time for him to fully adapt to that style of play. And once he does, then we're going to see his quality shine even further. So I have every faith that he will excel in this Liverpool team. A lot of fans have cashed out and said we've wasted our money. What on earth were we thinking of signing Florian Wirtz? I completely disagree. I feel like this player is one of the best number 10s in the world. I've said it for a number of times, and I'm not just saying it because he's a Liverpool player. For me, he really is. So only amount of time before he really hits that level that we expect him to see. Um, but yeah, you've got to stay patient. You can't just expect things to happen all of a sudden. This is not FC 26 where you buy players and things click straight away. This is real life. So when it comes to real life, you have to look at different elements of the situation where he's moved over to a new country, new surrounding, new teammates, new style of play, new coach, new demands in terms of what's expected from him on the pitch. New intensity in terms of how the league is played or how we set up as a team. So there's a lot to kind of evolve in. And we're only in September, so we've just started the season. So give him some time to kick in. Um, and it's funny because our results, apart from today, have been very, very positive. Well, fans are still crashing out on him. So for me, it doesn't bode very well. And I feel like fans are more wary of what rival fans will tell us about him because he's one of our record signings. I could not care less, honestly. In this kind of moment, it's irrelevant. All I care about is Liverpool, and all I care about is how our players are doing. And I can see glimpses of his talent in terms of what he's trying to show on the pitch, but he just hasn't been sharp enough. There's been so many occasions where someone's passed the ball to him and he's had a touch and he's thinking, what do I do next? And someone's clamped him from behind or from the side and the ball's gone. In the Bundesliga, he would have passed and moved, like it would have been all sorts. So he needs to find that rhythm again. Once he's got that in his game, he's going to showcase why, not just me, why a lot of people believe he's one of the best number 10s in world football. So hopefully that'll come sooner rather than later. But I have every faith that it will happen very, very soon. Cash Talk says Ryan Grab in terms of RG. I did gather that. He said, well said. Look at Ryan Grab now. Give it time. Yeah, you know, with Gravenberch, and I said this when we signed him as well, and I said it last year when Ozwrld put him in that double pivot. Everyone was so confused. I remember when we first appointed Ozwrld, and when content creators did their sort of squad where who's playing this role and who's the backup. Everyone had Gravenberch as a backup for the number 10 role. And I was like, you guys haven't seen Gravenberch play because at Ajax, he pretty much made his name playing in the double pivot. Now, the single pivot, he hasn't played as many games. For the Netherlands under 21s, he's actually played there quite a bit. So it is a role that he's familiar with. But I think, in terms of this team that we have right now, last season, he was pretty much the more defensive player where he was the last man in the midfield. So he did have to adapt his way a little bit. This year around, he's been given the license to roam around a bit, use his ball carrying ability to his advantage. And because of that, you're seeing him a bit more further up. You're seeing him scoring goals. So for me, it's something where he has really, evolved and he's pretty much making this number 6 or whatever role you want to call it his own right now. So he only needed time. And I feel like people looked at his year at Bayern and thought, oh, he's done. Like he's all hype. He's not the player that everyone thought he was. Remember, he was a very highly sought after player before he went to Bayern. Real Madrid wanted him, Barcelona wanted him. We were interested in him as well. We were really trying to get him, but he ended up deciding to move into Bayern Munich. Of course, it didn't work out, but thankfully for us, we were able to get him 1 year later. So for me, he's shown what a talent he is, and proof is in the pudding. Give a player time, and he will showcase his talent going forward. He's a world beater. I think that's in reference to Verts. This time next year, 100%. Liverpool have played very poor and still win. It's a new team. People need to calm down. I totally agree. Oh my gosh, stop. No double pivot. It's not real. I get what you mean, but I'm just more so talking in terms on paper because we start games with a double pivot, then you have one midfielder that goes a bit more further up. Um, but what my sort of comparison was that last season he would be the one that is the more defensive minded player in that role, whereas now it's actually turned where McAllister is the one that is the one a lot deeper, and unfortunately that might be something we need to tweak again because McAllister isn't holding his own in that role. Um, he's not defensively sound. He's not tactically aware to intercept or close up shop. And Gravenberg for me has that in his locker. So that's something we need to kind of like look into a bit more. Um, but yeah, let's see what goes on for our upcoming games. They don't play RG style. People like the double is not a thing. I agree to disagree that I think it is a thing. It's just that we're not static with our formation. I feel like in our midfield, we do sort of move around. It's not like Jurgen Klopp where we had a 4-3-3 where you had one single pivot. We start off in that sort of double pivot role, but as the sort of the game transitions, you do see a bit of alteration where one will be a lot deeper and the other midfield will be a bit more further up as a number 8. So kind of like your old school 4-4-2s where you have one midfielder defending, one a bit more further up. So it's kind of like those kind of dynamics. Of course, we're never going to have two defensive-minded players, sit in front of the centre backs. That never works, and that's actually quite ultra defensive, in my opinion, to have two players like that. So this is just for on paper in terms of where players are positioned, but I do feel like I don't think it's double pivot is not a thing. I think it is, but it's just that we're not static in terms of our setup. We do move around. Like for example, today in the start of the game, Verts was playing very central. At times it felt like it was a 4-2-2-2 because you have Verts and Szoboszlai literally together, and then you have Salah a bit more tucked in as well. So we do change our shapes during the game, but that's how I'm seeing it right now. Cash Talk says, I've been a coach all over the world for 25 years. The double pivot is BS. That's fair enough. If that's your expertise, I'm just, seeing what I see on the screen. And for me, I'm not saying it's always a static double pivot because it's never been like that. Because I feel like when teams play like that, you know, it's pretty much a six-man wall if you look at it that way. And then you've got four attackers. So it never evolves like that. And then you kind of lose out on that extra man in your attack. But I think, in terms of the setup, as we start the game, that's how it normally is, in my opinion. The pivot's a different role. It's not really a thing. But fair enough. That's your opinion. I probably just see the game a bit differently. But yeah, that's how it is. That's everyone's got their opinion, so that's how it goes, I guess. Now in terms of the ratings, let me bring on the subs. We made 5 substitutions today, so let me mention those quickly as well. Not that many of them had an impact other than one individual. So let's bring them on. So the most obvious one was Conor Bradley. He was taken off for Gakpo. I'll put the players in their correct positions very shortly. And then it was Jones for McAllister. So that was a more of a like for like substitution there. And then you've got Chiesa on for Verts. Chiesa on for Verts. And then you've got Frimpong for Kanate. And then the last substitution was Rio for Isak. So let's bring on Rio. Rio should be here. I did see him come up last time. There you go. Rio and Gamal. He's been added to the website. So let's put the players in kind of their correct positions. There you go. We put Chiesa there and then I think Gakpo was up top, wasn't he today? But we'll just put it for argument's sake there. So now let's start with Gakpo. Um, very quiet today, to be honest with you. when he first, got involved in the game in the second half, he had that shot. Then he had another one that went wide as well. But quite predictable in his play today. Um, so for me, um, yeah, not the best of performances today. So I'll give Gakpo a 4 out of 10 for today's performance. Now, in terms of who's the next player? Uh, Jones. So Jones actually thought didn't do too bad when he came on, but unfortunately, the winner was down to his error, maybe even two errors. Where firstly he gave the ball away, very sort of in a lazy manner, and then in the build-up play of that long throw, he was the player that headed the ball behind um, towards Nketiah, and Nketiah had a pretty much and not an open goal, but pretty much had um, a point blank range to score the goal. So for me, I had to deduct his rating a little bit. So for Jones, I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10. Um, Chiesa came on and definitely, had a positive impression. Scored a goal, almost scored a goal before the actual goal, actually, where he's hit the outside of the post. So positive impact as soon as he's come on. For me, this is the opportunity for him to stake a claim um, in the team now. And for me, I would actually start him in the next game. But let's see what Arne does. I don't get that kind of feeling that he favors Chiesa to start. And maybe in this moment, you kind of see that he does have favorites with, he always prefers to start with Gakpo, even though today Gakpo didn't start. But let's see, how the team is set up against Galatasaray. Um, but for now, in terms of his rating, I'm gonna give him a 9 out of 10 for that goal. And for me, though I might as well just put him as the man of the match. Actually, you know what? Allison deserves man of the match because I thought Allison was spectacular in terms of his individual performance today. But Chiesa wasn't too far off in terms of his impact coming off the bench. And at the time, thought we had got the equalizer, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. And Frimpong, uh, apologies, just realized where Frimpong is. So Frimpong uh, looked a bit shaky defensively, if I'm being honest with you. Um, but overall, did an okay job today. Not enough for me to stake a starting position in the next game. So I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. And the final player is Rio. Didn't have much, involvement. Obviously, didn't play a lot of minutes. Um, so I'll give him 4 as well, just so it's aligned with the other players. I don't feel like I can give him a very high score due to having, limited touches on the ball. So that is my player ratings. Let me just go through some of the comments before we close the show. Um, Andrew says we missed Fabinho. Somebody like Caicedo, Curtis Jones. He came absolutely nothing. Poor performance. Yeah, the final moments I think led to the goal in the end. But yeah, we do kind of like that defensive minded play in the middle of the park. Whether Arne Slot agrees or that's the profile that we want in our squad remains to be seen. Because if you looked at our sort of our summer recently and the players we've linked with, I think Arne Slot prefers to have more technicians in that position rather than a destroyer type player. But let's see. I think this is something that will definitely need to be addressed in the coming future. Catholic Football says, "Let me coach you, mate. You are saying the right things. Don't repeat the stupid people." Well said, Andrew. I like your ranks. He needs to start. JK, big up JK. Said, "Bless, bro. You never walk alone. We just needed to boot the ball down the pitch instead of a throw in." I agree. Use your left foot. Just hook it over the players past the halfway line, because that was literally the last second or the final seconds of the game. Um, the worst thing he could have done is what he actually ended up doing, which was, give it away for throwing, and that was advantage Palace in that moment. But having said that, we still should have defended better. But I agree, we should have cleared the ball as well at the same time. So, as Cash Talk says, we'll clear the ball. I think we were all screaming at our screens, but when that occurred, so yeah, very frustrating. In terms of how that pound out. But you live and you learn. You got to learn from these kind of moments or these kind of mistakes, especially from Kirker's point of view. And hopefully, these things can be eradicated as we go forward because we're making a lot of these, individual errors or these moments where we're losing games or we're conceding goals due to these poor clearances. So it's something that needs to be worked on. But hopefully, Liverpool can, they can turn it around. And when you're playing at this level. You don't have a week to rest, or to ponder into what's happened. Um, we've got a couple of days. We're playing Galatasaray in the Champions League, so it doesn't get more fiery than that. It's actually at Istanbul as well, so yeah, expect a crazy and fiery atmosphere there. But yeah, no rest for the wicked. So hopefully Liverpool can produce a decent level performance. That's what I'm looking forward to in terms of, hopefully we can just play better football. We just haven't played to our level and try and keep a clean sheet. Because once you click one or two, it bows great confidence into the team, not just from a defensive point of view, but as a collective. So hopefully, we can see better performances. And of course, that the results will reflect that going forward as well. Um, just got a last comment here from Cash. It's a good stream. Boss, keep going. Appreciate your comments there. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for tuning in today. And that is it for today, guys. Shout to, let's go from the top. Ozen Kabak, Deluded Steve, Musa, Cash Talks Football, and Andrew. Appreciate you. And JK as well, of course. Thank you for your engagement as always. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming show, we'll do a match preview tomorrow for that Galatasaray versus Liverpool fixture. We'll probably talk about this game a little bit more as well. If there's any rumors circulating, maybe we'll touch on that as well. And then we'll do a live watch along of that game, hopefully, on Tuesday night. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.